Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the model school. In the video classes, today we will start the part 4th of chapter number 13. Today's topic is parasitism, and as far as parasitism is concerned, this is the relationship in which one species is benefits and in expense of other. So you can see basically parasitism is a relationship of two or more organisms. You can say either it may be in plants or animals. One species is benefited and another is harmed. So such type of relationship is known as parasitism. You have seen this picture. This is the mouse and this is the tick. This tick is known as parasite and it is depending on the host for food and shelter. So it will receive the food from host. So parasite will be benefited, on the other hand host will be harmed. Such type of relationship will be discussed here. There are different types of parasitism and the nature is known as parasitism. The parasitism may be ectoparasite or endoparasite. It depends on the type of species. So by looking at the PPTs, we will discuss further. So in the parasitism, as I have discussed earlier, it is a relationship between two species of plants or animals. So it may be the relation between plants and animals or both, in which one benefits at the expense of other, sometimes without killing the host organism. So in parasitism you can see the killing of the host is not the priority. Parasitic mode of life ensures free lodging and meals. It is evolved in many taxonomic groups from plants to vertebrates. So it may be seen in the plants as well as in the higher animals like vertebrates. Some parasites are host specific. One parasite has a single host. So you can see most of the parasites are host specific. They survive on a specific species of the plant or animal in such a way that both host and parasite tend to co-evolve. So co-evolution can be seen in the parasitism. If host evolved special mechanism for rejecting or resisting the parasite, then the parasite also evolved mechanism to counteract or neutralize them. So both these species want to protect themselves from the attack of the parasite. Some sort of adaptations can be seen in the parasites and there are some adaptations can be seen in the host. So specific adaptations are evolved. So here we can see the adaptations found in the parasites. So what are the parasitic adaptations? For example, you can see the loss of unnecessary sense organs because parasite is entirely depending on the host for food and shelter. So unnecessary sense organs are absent or less active. Similarly, the presence of adhesive organs or suckers to cling on the host. So you can see this in the lice. They have a adhesive organs or some suckers can also be seen in the tinea solium and liver fluke also. So loss of digestive system and high reproductive capacity. The first adaptation is loss of digestive system. The parasites which are residing in the intestinal tract, they have already digested food to eat. So they need not to have a well developed digestive system. Similarly, to survive in the nature, the high reproductive capacity can be seen in the parasites. The most reproductive capacity can be seen in Ascaris. In female Ascaris, it lays almost 1.5 to 2 crore eggs in 9 months. Similarly, parasites having one or more intermediate host or vectors to facilitate parasitization of its primary host. So different types of parasitic adaptations can be seen. Have a look on one important example, human liver fluke. This is basically a trematode, has two intermediate hosts. The first intermediate is snail and the second intermediate is a vertebrate. It may be fish or ship or goat or in some cases human also to complete its life cycle. The malarial parasite also has two intermediates, human and a female Anopheles mosquito. So this is also we have already discussed in the chapter number 8. Malaria parasite, Plasmodium, where you can see the host human and female Anopheles. Figure is given here. This is the liver fluke found in our liver. Similarly, you can see the effects on the host. What kind of effects can be seen on the host? So, majority of the parasites harms the host and following impacts can be seen. The first is parasite always harms the host. In the parasitism, it is always harmful for the host. They reduce the survival and the impacts on the host can be seen. There is the reduction in the survival, there is the retarded growth and reproduction capacity of the host is retarded. Reduced its population density. It will reduce the population density of the host and they make the host more vulnerable to the predators. So after the effect of parasite, host will become vulnerable to the predators by making it physically weak. Some examples, a figure is given here, you can see this is taken from Jian Jiao Tong University. Effects of parasite on the host, you can see depriving the host of essential substance, hookworm, it will suck the blood of the host and host will face anemia. Similarly, mechanical effects of parasite on the host, ascaris, it will perforate the intestine and obstruction or illusions can be seen. Similarly, toxic and allergic effects can also be seen. Proteolytic enzymes, it will cause the necrosis and you can see the ulcers in the host intestine. Parasite antigen, it will cause the loss of immune system. Anaphylaxis is the example. Although this is not given in your book, it is explained here to just boost your knowledge. Some important questions of NCERT book is given here. Try to understand. Question number first is, why did not the natural selection lead to the evolution of such totally harmless parasites? There are no any parasite which is harmless. So the answer is natural selection did not lead to such evolution, because if the parasite become harmless, then they show commensalism, not the parasitism. So if any organism is harmless, then their relationship will not be known as parasitism. In place of that, it will show the commensalism. Okay, and the next question is, the female mosquito is not considered as a parasite. Very important, you can ask this question to anyone. Most of the person will fail to give the answer. The female mosquito is not considered a parasite, although it needs our blood for reproduction. Why? What is the reason behind this? Most important, you can see the answer. The female mosquito is not considered as a parasite because it needs blood for reproduction and not for nutrition. So parasites are those organisms which are directly depending for the food, or you can say meal, or you can say nutrition on the host. But in the female mosquito, this is not for the nutrition. It does not bite human for its meal. The aim of the mosquito is not to eat the human blood. It bites humans so that it can nourish the developing fertile eggs. So again, there is an important question of your book and I have explained this. Now the question is types of parasites. There are different types of parasites can be seen. Ectoparasites. What is mean? Ectoparasites feeds on the external surface of the host is called ectoparasite. The organism that depends for their food on the outside of the body of the host. You can see the lice on human beings. Lice on the human beings. We can see the June. That is the lice. Ticks on dogs. We also known as bug. And marine fish infested with copypods. So copypods are the parasites of marine fish. Ticks are the parasite on dog and lice on human. You can see. And Cuscuta, this is another important example. Cuscuta, this is also known as amarbel. A parasitic plant grow on haze plants. It has lost chlorophyll and leaves. In the Cuscuta, you can see this is non-green plant and it is depending on the another plant. In the course of evolution, it derives the nutrition from host plant. You can see three examples, four examples here. The first, this is the lice. A close picture of the lice is given here. This is the dog and these are the ticks present on the skin of the dog. It also harms the dog. And this is fish, and at this place copypods are present, and these yellow structures are the amarbel, or you can say Cuscuta, which is the ectoparasite on haze plants. Similarly, the second type of parasite is endoparasites. Endoparasites are those that live inside the host body at different sites like liver, kidney, lungs or RBC. You can see there are different types of endoparasites can be seen. It may be found in liver, it may be found in kidney, it may be found in lungs and RBCs. Generally in our syllabus we discuss about the liver parasites just like liver fluke and RBC parasites just like plasmodium. So life cycle is more complex because of extreme specialization. It requires extreme specialization. Morphological and anatomical features are greatly simplified. Highly developed reproductive system that shows high potential. You can see some examples are given here. Dictyofilm renal. Basically, this is the parasite of kidney. And strongyloides. This is also the parasite. These are the unique pictures taken from internet for your kind information. So these are the parasites in the kidney and this is the parasite, and these names are also not given in your book but you need to remember. Now there is another type of parasitism, very specific parasitism, that is brood parasitism. Most important, many times CBSE asked on the question on this topic, brood parasitism. Special type of parasitism found in birds. Basically, this is found in the birds. The parasitic birds lay its eggs in the nest of its host and let the host incubate them. So what will you see? Parasite will lay their eggs in the nest of the host, and host will not identify the eggs of the parasite and they will incubate them. In the course of evolution, the eggs of the parasite are just similar to the host egg in size and color. So the eggs of the parasite are just similar in the size, similar in the color, to reduce the determination chances so that can't eject from the nest. You can heard about the cuckoo. What is cuckoo? Quail that lays eggs in the nest of crow. You can see it is very well known in our villages. Quail lays their eggs in the nest of crow. In breeding season, spring to summer, very beautiful pictures are given here. You can see these are the cuckoo and these are the eggs. And there are many more examples of brood parasitism, but remember the cuckoo and the crow. Cuckoo just behave like a parasite, and crow, this will be the host. So this is all about the parasitism. I think there will be no doubt in the parasitism. The next population interaction relationship is commensalism. What is commensalism? It is an association between two organisms in which one benefits and other derives neither benefit nor harm. So you can see in such type of relationship, one member of the association is benefited and another is neither benefited nor harm. So you can clearly see the examples. The first example is orchids growing as an epiphyte on mango branch. You can see epiphytes are special type of plants that grows on the another plant, but they are photosynthetic autotrophic plants. They just take shelter on it. So orchid is independent regarding nutrition. It has hanging roots that absorbs humidity from the atmosphere for water. You can see these two pictures. These are the epiphytes, and you can see the roots hanging in the atmosphere. They will absorb humidity from the atmosphere, and this is mango plant. And this another figure, epiphytic plants grow well in high humidity levels, but the condition, it can be seen only in the places where humidity level is very high. Second example, this is another well known example, barnacles on the back of whales. Whales are the mammal basically, and in general we know blue whale is the well-known example. Barnacles regularly colonize the skin of filter feeding whales in vast numbers by attaching themselves to the bodies of the gentle giants while still free swimming larvae. So you can see this is the body of the whale fish, and these are the colony of the barnacles. But most importantly, these barnacles have free living, free swimming larvae. This is the example of whales, because barnacles are receiving the benefits while whale remains unaffected. In the third example, this is another important example, clownfish living among tentacles of sea anemone. You can see the first figure, this is the sea anemone. It is animal found in water, and this is the very beautiful fish, clownfish. As predators comes nearer to clownfish to kill it, it hides itself in the tentacles of anemone. This is the clownfish in the tentacles of sea anemone. So sea anemone has stinging tentacles. Yeah, these structures are the tentacles, and the clownfish lives among them. The fish gets protection from the predators. What is the benefit for the fish? It is protected, which stay away from the stinging tentacles. The sea anemone doesn't appear to derive any benefit by hosting the clownfish. There is the zero benefit for sea anemone with respect to clownfish. The fourth and most common example which can be seen in our farm or agriculture land, it's a classical example of commensalism which easily can be seen in farms in rural areas. The egrets. What is egret? Basically this type of bird is known as egrets. So the egrets always forage close to the cattle or grazing, because as the cattle move, stir up and flush out from the vegetation insects that otherwise might be difficult for egrets to find and catch. So you can see as the cattle will move in the grassland area, insects will come out and these egrets will eat them. So these egrets are benefited, but there is zero benefit for cattle. What a classical example of commensalism. So dear students, this is all about the commensalism. Commensalism in which one member is benefited, another is not benefited, or you can say not harmed. Next one is mutualism. Mutualism describes the ecological interpretation between two or more species. So you can see mutualism describes ecological interaction between two or more species where each species has a net benefit. In the mutualism, basically this is perfect symbiotic relationship in which both the members will be benefited. The another definition is interaction between two living organisms, both are equally benefited, no one is harmed. So this is the only relationship in which both are benefited. You have seen the example, mutualism is a biological interaction between two species wherein both the species benefit from each other. You can see the flower and insect. Flower is pollinated with the help of insect, and insect is receiving the pollen and nectar from the flower. So both are benefited. Similar, a beautiful picture is given of mutualism. These are the butterflies and they are sitting near the flowers. Butterflies receiving nectar and pollen from the plant, and these plants are pollinated by butterflies. What a beautiful picture is this. Another some explanations we will discuss. The first example of mutualism is lichen. Already we have discussed in class 11th also, but again we will discuss here. A lichen is a composite organism that arises from algae or cyanobacteria living among filaments of multiple fungi species in a mutualistic relationship. So basically lichen is a symbiotic, or you can say mutualistic relationship of fungi and algae, where the fungal part of the lichen is known as mycobiont and the algal part of the lichen is known as phycobiont. Mycobiont, fungal part that absorbs minerals and water. What is the role of fungi in the lichen? It will absorb the minerals and water, while on the other hand, what is the role of algae? It is autotrophic in nature, it will photosynthesize and it provide nutrition to the fungi. So you can see both the members are benefited. A beautiful picture of the lichen is given here. This is lichen on the trunk of the tree, and this is the crustose lichen on the surface of rock. So the next example of mutualism is mycorrhiza. A mycorrhiza is a mutual symbiotic association between a fungus and the roots of higher plants. So basically this is the relationship of two organisms, fungi and the higher plants. The fungi help in the plant in absorption of nutrients from soil, and plant in turn provides the fungi with energy yielding carbohydrates. So both are benefited. The fungi will absorb the nutrients from the soil, while the green plant will form carbohydrate in photosynthesis and provide nutrition to the fungi. Beautiful pictures are given here. You can see the plant. This is white threads are the fungi, and the another figure is again the mycorrhiza. The most spectacular and evolutionary fascinating example of mutualism are found in plant-animal relationship. So next example is pollinating insects and flowering plants. Plants need help from animals for pollination and dispersal of seeds. So you can see there is the relationship between plants and animals for pollination and dispersal of seeds. Plants paid the fees for service in return. So this is very surprising that plants are giving rewards to the animals. Plants offer fees in the form of pollen and nectar, while juicy and nutritious fruits for disperse. So in the dispersal, the animal will receive the juicy fruits, and this is the example showing the pollination by insect. This is entomophily. This bird, it is eating the fruit and its seeds are spreaded elsewhere. On the similar situation, this is the dog and this is the seed with the spikes and attached to the body, and you can see the dispersal of seeds. Similarly, special note is given here. There are some cheaters also found in lower organisms also. Nectar robbing is a foraging behavior utilized by some organisms that feed on floral nectar or gametes but does not benefits the host plants. So there are some insects which will uptake the food from the plant but does not help in the pollination. You can see there are pollen cheaters. The another name is pollen robbers that try to steal nectar without aiding in pollination. So a safeguard is needed. So you can see example. This is also unknown for you. The proboscis of Eurybia albinia does not come in contact with the reproductive part of the flower in Calathea ovadensis. So you can see this is the insect. It is eating the nectar from outside. It is not coming in touch with the anther or pollen. Similarly, these two figures are of Eurybia albinia. These are the insects and they are eating the nectar and pollen. Next, again there is a question from your NCERT book. Why plant animal interactions often involve co-evolution of the mutualists? This type of species interaction involves the exchange of goods or services between two species called mutualist partners. You have the example here. The evolution of plant flower and the pollinator species are closely linked. In many species, fig trees. Fig trees means Anjeer podha. And species of wasp, basically this is a type of insect. It means the given fig species can be pollinated only by its partner wasp species. The female wasp uses the fruit not only as an oviposition egg laying site but uses the developing seeds within the fruit for nourishing its larvae. So you can see there are two benefits. First, egg laying site, and the second benefit, larva eats the seeds of the fig plant. The wasp pollinates the fig inflorescence while searching egg laying sites, while fig offers the wasp some of its developing seeds as a food for developing larva. So you can see this is the relationship between fig plant and wasp, in which fig is giving egg laying site and nourishment to the larvae, and fig flowers are pollinated by this wasp. A figure is given here. This is the fig branch anatomy. You can see these are the leaf buds, ostiole. Ostiole, basically from this place wasp will enter in the internal part. This is ovary, these are the calyx. In the ovary it will lay the eggs. You can see the cross section of a receptive fig here. This insect is giving, or you can say laying the eggs, and a cycle is given, although this is not the part of your syllabus. This figure is taken from your notebook, sorry, NCERT book, figure 13.6, mutual relationship between fig tree and wasp. Fig flower is pollinated by wasp laying eggs in a fig fruit. So this is the fig fruit. These are the insects. They will lay the eggs inside it and receive the nutrition from seeds. Now, mutualism versus commensalism. What is the basic difference between mutualism and commensalism? Mutualism is a type of symbiotic relationship among two or more different species where both species benefit. So in the mutualism, both the members are benefited. On the other hand, commensalism is a type of symbiotic relationship where only one species is benefited and the another is unaffected. Both species receive benefits, only one species receive benefits. Example include the relationship between bees and flowers, digestive bacteria and humans, and oxpeckers and the zebras. Although this example is not given here in your book. Example include hermit crabs using dead gastropods for their protection, millipedes traveling on birds. The next and the last topic of the chapter is sexual deceit. Very important. It is the process in which petals of its flower bears an uncanny resemblance to the female of the bee and the bumblebees in size, color and the markings. So what will you see? One petal of the flower just resemble the size, color and markings just similar to the female insect. Not orchids show a bewildering diversity of floral patterns, many of which have evolved to attract the right pollinator insects, bees and bumblebees, and ensure guaranteed pollination. So there will be a guaranteed pollination. Exception is given here, but not all orchids offer rewards. In a Mediterranean orchid, Ophrys employs sexual deceit to get pollination done by specific bees. Pollination is done, but there is a sexual deceit. In Hindi, this is known as Laingik Kapat, where there is no benefit for the insect. Example, Ophrys and bee. In the Ophrys plant, one petal of its flower bears an uncanny resemblance to the female of the bee and bumblebees in size, color and markings. The male bee is attracted to what it perceives as a female. It pseudocopulates with another flower and it transfers pollen to the flower without any reward. So pollen grains are transferred, but any reward is not received from the Ophrys and bee. This figure 13.7 is taken from your NCERT book showing bee a pollinator on orchid flower, and this is the another flower. You can see this is the real original male insect and this is the copy of the female, which is the modification of petal of flower. Here co-evolution operates if the female bees color patterns change even slightly for any reason during evolution, pollination success will be reduced unless the orchid flower co-evolves to maintain the resemblance of its petal to the female bee. So you can see if there is any evolutionary changes in the female insect, then plant will have to change itself. This is the co-evolution or your co-evolutionary changes. So dear students, this is the end of chapter number 13. Most important examples are given here. Thank you very much and try to understand all the facts of ecology, parasitism, predators, commensalism, mutualism. And if you have any problem, you are free to ask any question to me on WhatsApp group or on my personal mobile numbers. So thank you. Have a nice day.